Roll call, please.
Commissioner Arata, absent. Commissioner Bajaj,
Present.
Commissioner Funabashi,
Present.
Commissioner Nafisi, absent. Commissioner Glass,
Present.
Vice Chair Min,
Present.
and Chair Simpson.
I am here. Okay, I guess we need to salute the flag. Commissioner Bajaj, can you lead us, please?
Certainly. All right, ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And can we get a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Do we need to ask for comment on that? I don't think so. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none. So we do have blue folder items. I guess we need a motion to receive and file those. Anyone care to make that motion? Commissioner Glass? And a second?
Second?
Commissioner Funabashi seconds. The consent calendar, is there anything there?
We'll need a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, do we need a roll call on that, do you think, or we can just?
We can just do that.
Okay, all those in favor of receive and filing the blue folder items?
Aye.
Opposed? See none. Consent calendar, is there any of those items that anyone would like to pull and discuss separately? Or would we care to just simply vote on the consent calendar? I found them all straightforward and not needing anything to poll and discuss separately, so I would hope someone would make the motion to.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
And is there a second? Yes, Commissioner Glass seconds. Let's do a roll call. Oh, we need to ask for comment. There isn't anybody here that wants to comment. I doubt that there's any e-comments on it.
There are no e-comments, and we do have a participant in Zoom, but they're not raising their hand for this.
Okay, so why don't you call the roll on this one?
Sure. Commissioner Bajaj,
Yes.
Commissioner Funabashi,
Yes.
Commissioner Glass,
Yes.
Vice Chairman,
Yes.
Chair Simpson.
Yes. Okay, so it's now time for public participation on non-agenda items. We did have the blue folder item that was a non-agenda item. I trust everyone did see that. Do we have any other public participation on non-agenda items?
Again, no, our participant on Zoom is not here for that item.
Okay. And then I guess we're nothing from previous agendas. We're up to items for discussion prior to action, and the J1 would be the stop sign installation at Perkins Lane and Ripley Avenue. Do we have something on that?
Very good. Thank you, Chair Simpson. I'll be presenting on that tonight. The item J1 is an always stop installation recommendation from staff. We received a request from a resident via the council member from District 4 in May to look at this intersection. As per our process on the flow chart here, our traffic engineer went to the field, made an evaluation, determined that this was worthy of bringing to you tonight for with a recommendation for an all-way stop. Because of that, we didn't do the standard resident survey, which we do when we find no technical reason to bring it forward. But we did notify the residents in that 150-foot area around, radius around the stop sign location, the always stop location. So the green arrow there just kind of signifies the pathway. that finds us here tonight. As I mentioned, we did find a technical reason about a potential safety issue with sightline issues at the intersection, and that's why we're bringing it forward tonight to you. I'll give you a quick overview of the neighborhood here. I've circled the intersections in question within the orange circle. Ripley Avenue, as you are probably all familiar with, is fairly heavily trafficked. It is classified as a residential street, 30 mile per hour prima facie speed limit, and stop controlled at Wood Avenue on the northeastern side and Felton Lane on the southwesterly side. It's intersected by Perkins Lane, which is two-way, Huntington Lane, one-way east, and Harriman Lane, one-way to the west. And no stop control at Harriman, as it's an entry point from Ripley to Harriman. And then Perkins and Huntington is stop controlled only on Huntington. Well, actually, just one stop sign there at the Huntington eastbound location, a second stop sign at Huntington and Ripley, and then there's a southbound, a stop for the southbound travelers on Perkins as well. So that's what I've tried to indicate with that map there. These are photos that I took today. So these just showed light traffic, non-school day. Of course, the school's out summer. But you can see this is Ripley Avenue looking to the northeast and facing the intersection. Good evening. Facing the intersection with Perkins. Photo looking the opposite direction to the southwest along Ripley. Huntington is kind of directly into your screen on the right half of the photograph, and Perkins crosses behind that black car and intersects Ripley there in that photo. This is a view from kind of looking southward on Perkins across Huntington. As I mentioned, we had sightline issues were brought about the concern. As you can see, the landscaping there behind the one-way sign and the Huntington's street name sign does obstruct clear sightlines to Ripley, especially if you look kind of hard to your right if you're stopped at that intersection on Huntington. I've got a little bit of a closer view here. And I'll get in a little bit to the analysis here. This is, I stood in the middle of the street where I thought a driver might be if he was stopped at this stop sign and took this picture. And it shows you how difficult it is to see clearly to the right. That sweeping arrow is kind of to indicate the path of travel of vehicles making a left turn onto Perkins from Ripley. And it measures from kind of where the sight line disappears only about 50 feet. So as vehicles are traveling northeasterly on Ripley and turning left to the north, they are not stop controlled. They're moving it, coming from 30 miles an hour and perhaps slowing to make the turn, but certainly not down to minimal speeds. And at times they're accelerating through that intersection, trying to make the turn before oncoming traffic in the southwest direction on Ripley. So very limited sight visibility for vehicles stopped on Huntington, and kind of deciding whether or not you have a clear path to get across the intersection is not easy or convenient at this point, I'll put it that way. We did, by the way, look at collision history from Switters for the last 5 years on this, and I was surprised to find no accident history reported. One of the blue folder items is a letter from a resident who indicated that it is a perilous intersection in her view. Trying to get across there is very difficult, and very much welcome the idea of a stop sign on Ripley at Perkins. Just another view here. This is an overhead shot. That blue triangle is kind of a sight lines as you look to the right if you were a driver on Huntington Lane. And you see you've got maybe 50 feet there. This matches the 50 feet on the previous slide of being able, the distance you have to kind of ascertain a car coming through there and deciding whether or not you can make it ahead of them just in that short 50-foot distance. And again, traveling at speed, that's, 20 miles an hour is 30 feet per second, right? So 50 feet gives you less than 2 seconds to kind of figure that out. So you can kind of understand the nature of that, evaluating that turning car coming ahead of you. An option that might have been considered would be to make Perkins and Huntington an always stop, adding stop signs to both south and northbound at Huntington Lane. But because of the short distance between Ripley and Huntington, that's not advised. And so the traffic engineers that I work with, who are a lot smarter than this than me, said, don't do it. And so we're not going to do that. So
Where are you going to put it?
that's the fun animation for tonight. I hope you got a lot out of that because it's. Here's the neighborhood map again with the always stop consideration at Perkins and Ripley Lane. It would end up, we'd keep the stop signs there on Huntington, of course, but move Perkins and always to an always stop configuration. I think that's the end of my report. I've just put up some of the available alternatives that the commission might consider, recommending advancing the always stop request, or really recommendation in this case to the city council, not supporting the always stop recommendation or any other action that you deem appropriate. So that concludes my remarks on that intersection. I'd be happy to answer
Can you
questions
go
with
back to
my.
the previous slide? I just
Sure.
have a question on that. Any questions or comments from anyone? Yes, Commissioner.
First of all, can you go back about 2 slides to or the one with the green, the aqua, yeah, that's good. This is an intersection begging for reconstruction, to make it safer. Has any consideration been given to taking the space between the island and up Ripley towards a white car and blocking that off? So that, there's no risk of people coming in on Ripley and just zooming in that way. And also maybe realigning some of the streets so that actually the street is where the island is. So you have a 90-degree turn onto Ripley. I think something like that would clear this up, because this is a mess. You shouldn't have those 2 entrances to that whole area that close together. I'm surprised there hasn't been an accident by somebody going from Ripley onto Huntington, or from Perkins, or turning onto Perkins. It's strange.
The answer is no. We haven't really considered in these short months since we got the email a reconfiguration. We do have this situation all along Ripley. It's a diagonal street, and we run into this in a lot of locations.
I just don't think it's a good idea to have those 2 entrances like that.
Well, Huntington
One of them ought
is-
to be blocked like was done on Robinson, where the curved streets enter Robinson. And I think they were probably put in for some of the same reason.
So Huntington, just so I'm clear, is one way to the east, so it's not technically an entrance. It would be an exit onto Ripley. Of course, that doesn't mean somebody wouldn't try and make that illegal turn anyway, but I just want to make sure we're connecting on that.
Other
That
questions,
point.
comments?
I have a few. Yeah. Huntington Lane is one way, and I looked at this and dropping my kids off at Adams all those years. I thought I just totally blame it on Ripley. That whole street is the one street at that crazy angle, and all the rest of them are north, south, east, west. Right? I believe there's a telephone or a power pole on that little island too.
You're right, there's a pole there.
So if you want to work with Edison, I wouldn't even say look at your watch. Probably look at your calendar, years from now. What we're talking about is just one stop sign on the eastbound Ripley, right?
No, we'd put
Or-
it in both directions
You would
on
put one-
Ripley.
okay.
That's the recommendation, yeah.
Okay, just to keep consistent with both directions. Okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The only other thing that I wanted to clarify is that blue folder item that came from the neighbor talking about the close calls and walking the dogs and things like that. Is that the house that's right on the corner?
I didn't note the address. It was a,
'Cause I did my best to calculate. I thought it was 2620. And I just, I'll just say it. I'm kind of in favor of the always stop, definitely, and following staff's advice. But I can't help but notice from this picture, when I was looking at the report in preparation for tonight's meeting, I couldn't help but notice some of the overgrowth from that particular private residence. And if there's another shot of what the view would look like from a car eastbound on Huntington looking to the right, and here's that hedge, coming over the public sidewalk. So part of a side question I have, and not to put anyone on the spot, but what do we do as a city in terms of site impediments that are caused by private properties landscaping? And I don't think that cutting that hedge right back to the edge of the sidewalk solves this by any means, but I'm kind of thinking in a bigger picture of how it certainly couldn't hurt and might be helpful, and how we might apply some of that input to future issues with sightline. So what's our position there?
So we have residential design guidelines that prohibit anything taller than, I think it's 42 inches, being in the corners of a corner property. I guess it's 15 feet triangle or 10-foot triangle. I can't remember the exact distance. So we do have code enforcement authority to ask people to remove that. I don't know how that works with an old property that hasn't been redeveloped recently. In this case, I'm not sure how that would work, but we could certainly ask code enforcement to visit the site and enforce whatever they could regarding that line of sight issue.
As we could at other properties in the future, should we have similar instances?
And we have in the past, and certainly when it's a newer property or new installation of landscaping or a fence or something like that, we approach them on that.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Okay, I have a question, if I may. Can you go to the slide? Well, I'm not sure where you're putting the stop signs. I think you've got the slide that shows that down a bit.
Let's see, I just kind of did it graphically. It's not clear from the graphic.
That's the one you're not doing. This is the one that you're doing, right?
That's correct, yes.
So they're going on Ripley?
They would go on Ripley in both directions at Perkins.
Okay. All right.
The line of sight issue, being the stop at Perkins and not so much the stop at Ripley for Huntington Avenue drivers.
Yeah. Okay, other comments or questions? Yes.
So it already says stop, you're just putting an actual sign.
No, we're talking about putting stop signs on Ripley itself, which is not controlled here.
Okay, but on Huntington, there's a.
Those stop signs exist already,
Got it,
and
okay.
stop pavement markers exist already.
Okay.
So there will be 2 stop signs on Ripley, one in each direction.
Correct. There currently is a southbound stop sign for Perkins traffic. I just said that wrong. A stop sign for southbound.
Just roughly, where would the what is it, southwest sign go?
What'd you say, Tim?
I would go back to the other slide.
This one?
That's the Ghostbusters slide.
Yeah, this one.
If you look at that, you see where that vehicle is parked northbound Ripley?
Here.
The white.
Yeah.
I turn on my microphone. That's approximately the location. It would align perpendicular to Ripley and align with the wheelchair ramp or the ADA ramp that's on the opposite side of the street. That's the approximate location on the southerly leg. The northerly leg would probably be where that white vehicle is by the island.
By the island. Okay,
Correct.
that's, all right, got it.
Not on the north end of Huntington Lane. That would be too wide and too far for the
Yeah,
southbound driver to access.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Commissioner Min?
Thanks. Are you going to mark a crosswalk here?
It's a fair question. We talked about that some. We wanted to talk to the school before we pursued that, which I haven't been able to do yet. There's an advantage to focusing the crossing down where the crossing guard is, as opposed to this location.
Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges, where the crossing guard is, there's like an army of bikes coming through, right? And I know a lot of them come down from other parts, like they just kind of all funnel there. I'm wondering if a crosswalk would actually help with some of the volume of that coming through, because for about 20 minutes, you're gonna get it's just crazy how many bikes come through there. And I kind of support Commissioner Glass's suggestion about closing off Huntington. I've myself driven accidentally the wrong way down there coming down, and I live in Herman, and so I just live a block away, so that, and I naturally just take that route, and it's awkward. It's also awkward to see a car pulling out as you're coming down Ripley. It's just a very awkward intersection. So although maybe as a temporary measure, the stop signs are a great solution, but maybe if we were to resurface Ripley one day, or do more capital work, we may want to reconfigure this to more, as Commissioner Glass suggested.
Commissioner Glass?
Okay, once again, I think it's a terrible mistake to put stop signs there on Ripley. First of all, the traffic coming down from Inglewood, I don't travel it that often, but it's right in front of the school, and I would imagine that you have a lot of traffic there, and it's going to make it worse by getting people to stop there. The solution is not the stop signs. The solution is to redesign that entrance. Even though it costs more, it's more effort, do something. Put a barricade between the two white cars at the absolute least, so that nobody does what you said you've done accidentally. Maybe put a mirror up, one of those big spherical mirrors so people can, on the island, so people can see the oncoming track that way. But stop signs will make it into what we've done on Ringe and Vale. This is just the start of it. You're gonna have a stop sign every block. It's a mistake.
Okay, any other comments?
I appreciate the visibility analysis you did, and kind of taking into account that sweeping left turn movement, which a lot of times, might have gone unnoticed, but I think that's a valid visibility check you made. But I guess to kind of piggyback on what Commissioner Min said, if you are putting the stop sign here, there might be an opportunity for southbound Perkins to kind of redesign the double yellow so it comes in and kind of squares up at a 90-degree angle with Ripley. I know I've seen it in other intersections in the city. Like one that comes to mind is like Marshall Field and Ford, where you kind of do a little, like you kind of guide the double yellow and bring it into a 90-degree angle with Ripley, which could be, an easy near-term, enhancement for the intersection in addition to your stop signs.
Any other comments?
I just had another comment, because now we're really thinking, I want to be clear what Commissioner Glass, if you were proposing to create a barrier that prevented cars from traveling Huntington Lane eastbound onto Ripley, I thought, well, that solves that part, but it doesn't solve the cars making quick left turns off of eastbound Ripley onto northbound Perkins. However, if you block that off, you've automatically forced cars driving eastbound on Huntington to make a right onto Perkins Lane, depending on what they're going to do once they get to Ripley, whether they go left or right. But it gets rid of that one little section of Huntington. It prevents them from going straight. However, if you're going eastbound on Huntington and you're trying to make a left to go north on Perkins, that barrier does not solve this sightline issue. That makes sense?
I think the only way I would do it is I would actually take the island out. This is, in a perfect world, I would take the island out and have where the island is be where the streets enter Ripley. And I would block both of those off and make them into a park, a little pedestrian park where the streets are now.
Commissioner Glass,
So you have only
just
one.
in a perfect world, that would be great.
Yeah.
As it was noted, we've got an Edison pole right in the middle of that triangle.
I understand
Right.
that, but
The other part is that you have a property on that northeast corner of Perkins and Huntington Lane that actually has a driveway that backs right into that stop.
Yeah.
So we have to be cognizant of their circulation in and out of that
oh
driveway as
yeah,
well.
but they
And
don't
we
need
can't-
to have an access to Ripley from their driveway.
No, understood, but that driver essentially can only back out and go eastbound on Huntington onto Ripley. That driver can't go the other way around.
You could always make that one 50-foot length a two-way, exemption or something.
Yeah, all we're saying is that it's not as simple as let's just do it. If the driveway wasn't
Yeah.
there, it would have given us more flexibility. We're saying that it needs a little bit more assessment for that kind of a consideration.
No,
May
I
make a-
understand, and, this isn't a perfect world, but this is a mess. This is the absolute worst kind of an issue that we face. And you use the word temporary. It's a temporary solution right now, but, you know, we're going to be facing this again someday at the same place.
I mean, it does seem like it makes sense to reevaluate the streets and how they come together, and that would be a long-term reassessment and perhaps some construction in the future.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it seems to me that the stop sign is, the always stop is an essential thing for safety reasons.
And that can be the motion of the
Yeah.
commission, is to essentially approve the always stop today and assess an intersection rechannelization and contemplate that into the capital budget afterwards.
That was the sort of a motion that I was hoping somebody would make. Would somebody like, I think, is there any public comment and or discussion? There is the blue folder item. Any other comment? I don't think so. No comments?
No, there's no Zoom participants that would like to speak on this, and there's no additional e-comments that have come
Okay,
in.
so seeing no comment, how about a motion from somebody on what we should be doing here?
I'll make a motion that we follow staff's recommendation to install always stops at the corner of Perkins Lane and Ripley Avenue.
And did you want to add something about?
I think last meeting, we were talking about a holistic approach to streets around the city and everything. So I could reemphasize what was stated at last month's meeting, but that could be
Why don't you can you just?
I want to keep this motion real tight and clean. So I'm going to,
So we did, just so you know, in the quarterly report in your package, we did comment on that citywide thing.
I did see that. yeah.
Okay. And we could certainly add any additional studies. I just would also reemphasize, I found 0 correctable collisions at this location. If we were to do a priority study of intersections like this throughout the city, this wouldn't be any higher than the bottom because of the 0 collision in terms of priority.
We
So-
do have the motion on the floor to go with staff's recommendation and make the always stop. I guess we should have, we need a second. Anyone care to second that?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Can we have a roll call, please?
Sure, Commissioner
Can I
Bajaj?
get clarity? I'm sorry. I missed the motion, I think. Is it?
The motion
Commissioner
is to
Funabashi?
install a four-way, always stop at the
Always stop.
intersection of Ripley and Perkins Lane
Only. Okay.
only.
Okay. Understood.
Could I make one comment before we vote?
Sure.
I'm sorry. The one comment I just want to make is we are voting on a stop sign because that's all that staff presented us. And I feel like that's been the only option for many of the options that it's the only solution that staff presents to us. And I hope that we can be more out of the box moving forward and thinking about some of these solutions. And I know that they might be complicated and they might be expensive, but we need to plan better. Because every single meeting, we're just doing these one-offs, and it feels like we're doing our city a disservice, in my opinion, by putting these Band-Aids without addressing the traffic solutions in our city. And I just wanted to go on the record and say that.
Okay. Well, comment. Are we ready for a vote?
Sure, Commissioner Bajaj?
Yes.
Commissioner Funabashi?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisi?
Yes.
Commissioner Glass?
No,
Vice Chairman?
No.
Chair Simpson?
Yes. So that passes what, 4-2?
Correct.
Okay. Next on the agenda would be J2, I guess, which is going to be a discussion of possible action regarding project alternatives for the Metro Active Transportation Grant project for the Redondo Beach Boulevard corridor.
Before we move on, can I ask a question? So given the last motion and how it went, a future request from the commission can always be made to staff, correct? Or like as a referral to look at enhancement for that intersection in the future?
Certainly, yes. And just to be clear, we're responding to a request for a stop sign,
Right.
which is kind of enshrined in our policy to go through this procedure.
Right.
We can, if the commission so wishes, we could include additional studies before we go to the council for a final decision on the stop sign. That's not the motion I heard, but certainly we could do something like that.
I recognize the value in what Commissioner Glass and what Commissioner Min were talking about. However, I do feel that it could be pursued as a completely separate, entity and request and sort
Well,
of process of its
motion
own.
did, and I think we've had
Yeah.
suggestions that
Right.
a more in-depth solution. This is a Band-Aid, but sometimes you need to apply the Band-Aid before you do other things. So item J2.
Very good. I'll be presenting on this one as well, and I'll have some help tonight from some consultants, one remotely, and then gentleman here who's moving up to the podium. He'll be jumping in as well. I'll start off with a little bit of a project overview from the city's point of view. The city, our city, the city of Lawndale and LA County were awarded in partnership a $6.6 million grant from Metro under what's called the MAT program. MAT stands for Metro Active Transportation Program. To improve the cycling and pedestrian facilities and experience along the Redondo Beach Boulevard corridor. And some of the stipulations were that it had to be a 3-mile stretch of roadway. And so we partnered with these other agencies to envision improvements for all the way along Redondo Beach Boulevard corridor from El Camino College to Dominguez Park here in Redondo Beach. And the corridor is not called Redondo Beach Boulevard everywhere. As you head to the southwest past the Galleria, the name changes to Grant. And at Inglewood, it jogs and goes down to Ripley and follows Ripley to Flagler, which is just north of Dominguez Park. So that's the corridor that's being studied. The agencies, once awarded the grant, Metro gave us the option to use one of their on-call consultants to do the preliminary planning, public outreach, and conceptual design work. And so we took them up on that. The firm they selected was CR and Associates, who is represented here tonight in person and remotely. They will be providing for you kind of a status update of the project at this point. And there are a number of, after going out for public input, there's a number of route alternatives that were looked at, narrowed down to a couple of options in places. We're going to focus primarily on the portion in Redondo Beach at this point. But there's a lot of options towards the southwest end. And we've narrowed that down to just a couple that we think avoid some of the, couple that seem to be the best. And we focused public outreach on those. There are some conflicts. The space between the curbs is in high demand. And as you know, as we've talked about before, and so there'll be some parking versus bike route type conflicts that we'll have to look at, and hope to just want to start the conversation tonight, get your opinion on that as we move forward. They'll also be presenting timelines, but to spoiler alert, we probably won't get to the conceptual design, the end of their contract until next summer. So that's kind of on the process we're on now. So Ario Rad is a traffic engineer. I'll let you introduce yourself in a second. And Monique Chen is the founder of CR Associates, is calling in remotely, I presume. I haven't heard her voice yet, but I think she's out there. And so she'll also be presenting some slides tonight. The slides are in your package, but we'll go through them here tonight for you. Go ahead, Ario.
Good evening. I think Monica is having difficulty connecting to the Zoom call, right?
She is having audio
She cannot-
issues.
Yeah. So I'm going to do the presentation
Okay.
today. Good
Give me
evening.
one second, Ario, to just jump onto the other presentation for you.
Sure.
You can start.
I'm Ario Raut. I'm with CR Associates. I'm corridor manager for this project. The project involves several corridors. A couple of the corridors are in the city of LA. We will be talking about Redondo Beach Boulevard corridor tonight, which is part of the city of Redondo Beach and other jurisdictions as well. So our agenda, I'll talk about the project first and project schedule. We have done 2 phases of outreach, and we'll talk about the survey result for that, and we'll go over the traffic operation analysis, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So the project is about 3.3 miles. It starts from Ripley Avenue on the west side. The project goes from southwest to northeast, and it ends at Dominguez Channel Greenway. The project, as Andy mentioned, was funded by LA Metro. LA Metro allocated $6.6 million for preliminary design, final design, and construction for the project. And as part of MAT Cycle 1, which includes several projects and corridors in LA County, and this corridor was selected for Cycle 1 of this program. Agencies that are involved in the City of Redondo Beach, Redondo, and LA County Public Works, and the project goal includes encouraging walking and biking, connecting to existing transit facilities, improving safety for all modes of traffic, including pedestrians, bicyclists, and cars, and also ADA improvement. So this is the original corridor that was selected as part of the program. There will be some changes that will go over that. As you see, it starts on the west side of Ripley Avenue. It goes north east through Ripley Avenue, and then Grant Avenue and Redondo Beach Boulevard. And some portion of Redondo Beach is in the County of LA jurisdiction. Here is the project schedule. The project started in July 2022, and we are in preliminary design, conceptual design phase right now. We have done the survey and the community outreach survey so far. We've done 2 phases of outreach. Phase 1 was for gathering information about the challenges in the corridor, and the second phase that we'll talk more about was for getting feedback on design alternative. Right now we're in summer 2023, so we are finalizing the concept cross sections and alternatives for the different segments of the corridor. And after this phase, we'll go over the conceptual design, and we will provide conceptual plans for the project, and then the project will go to the final design and construction. So this is the overall project timeline for outreach. As you see, we have done the phase 1. So for phase 1 and phase 2, we had the website surveying, we had flyers, and again, for phase 1, we did the overall, getting feedback for overall project location, challenges, and constraints of the corridor. For the second phase, though, we went to more detail. We provided some cross sections, some solutions, and alternative, and we will go over those alternatives shortly. So surveying, phase 2 was open from April 7 to May 31st. We had 367 surveying collected, and we have support from 3 different CBOs, and also we have through a promotion page called Kalutarovich, if I'm pronouncing it right. So this is the design alternate routes, and on the bottom you can see the surveying, the outreach surveying results, and line B is the original alignment for the project. It's along Ripley Avenue. Line A goes through Flagler and Belmont Lane. Line C goes through 192nd Street, and it turns and goes through Ralston Lane and connects to Lilienthal. Line D goes through 190th Street and goes through Lilienthal and connects back to Ripley. And as you see here, the original alignment has the highest vote from the community. However, major technical issue for line B is the portion of Ripley has over 12% of slope, which is very hard. It's not an ideal route for the bike lane. So our recommendation is the second most favorite item for line D, which is 190th Street and going through Lilienthal. On the south side of the Lilienthal, there's an existing bikeway that we are going to connect it directly to the school on the north side of Lilienthal. So this is our first segment on 190th Street. We also talked to the City of Torrance. City of Torrance was not in support of protected bike lane. So the options that we looked at, the various options that we looked at for the entire corridor, we wanted to have the safest bike lane, which is a class 4 or protected bike lane. And class 4 is with a physical barrier, so it can be raised median or any other means of separation for the bike lane. And the second option was a buffered class 2, which is just a striping. And third option was a class 2. And the final basically was a Shero or a class 3 bike lane. It's the bike lane that basically, the bicyclists would share the road with the cars. So this was the sorting that, we wanted to have, everywhere and get, the highest safety enhancement for bicyclists and pedestrian. And for this segment, as you see, because, we only have one option, so we went by, level of satisfaction. And over 50%, as you see here, were satisfied with this solution. So with this solution, we will eliminate the parking on the north side of the corridor. There are some concerns about that. There are some existing businesses and some loading and unloading zones on the north side of the corridor that we have to find a solution for this. And on the south side will be class 2. Good portion of the roadway on the north side, west down, doesn't have on-street parking. It's red curb. So fortunately, we don't have any on-street parking problem in that area, but we'll go over the details of those areas that we have some.
Yeah, I wanted to just jump in here in a minute if I could. This is on 190th Street. The south side of the street is Torrance. And we tried to encourage the city of Torrance to join us in this from the very beginning, and they were interested in supporting but not being a full partner in this. And so they've had some changes over there in their management, and so the best really we could do on the Torrance side of the street was just a class 2 bike lane on the southern side. So that's why we've got the divided look here. The northern side would be the cycle track with the buffer, really accomplished by narrowing the center left turn, two-way left turn lane and the lane widths by a foot or two each.
But you also lose parking.
Well, on a portion of it, and this is where we wanted to show this slide here, this is the corner of Meyer and 192nd. And that north westerly quadrant there's parking in front of the convenience store, as well as in front of that apartment complex with the tennis court that you can see. A loading zone is there too. So it gets complex right at the intersection. And that's kind of why we're trying to highlight these things to get your thoughts as we move forward on this. So yeah, parking would be sacrificed, if you will, in this location. Perhaps it could be replaced elsewhere around the corner. We haven't gone that far yet to understand that.
Do we know how many spaces would be lost?
I think it's fully parked. As you see in the photo, it looks like 6, and what's not parked there is the loading zone, which is, a full length 7 foot or so loading zone.
Are you finished? Are we just like bombarding you?
Yeah, you can ask questions.
I know for a fact the apartment building behind that 7-Eleven, it's a well-documented fight in the city that they deal with the loading trucks of 7-Eleven. So the loss of that loading zone is going to impact their parking. It's something that RBPD has been working really hard to ticket the loading trucks that go there too. So I pose that being a huge significant impact to the residents that live behind that 7-Eleven.
Yeah, agreed.
But this problem is only here if the alignment is chosen that goes down 190th Street. The Ripley one, which seems to be the favorite, doesn't have this problem.
That's correct.
So the Ripley alignment has other problems. This steepness, this slope on that street is, did you say 12%? places.
Over 12% in several
that's the-
segments,
I'm not
so
gonna
it's
ride
not
there.
ideal for bike.
People have electric bikes now, so.
Well, why don't you carry on with the presentation?
Sure.
Before we do that, I just go back to the slide before that if you can. And this is strictly from Meyer Lane, right? The image is strictly from Meyer Lane to Ringe. Which means the cycle tract itself can start at some point west of Meyer Lane. Because as Andy was mentioning, after you get through the loading zone and about 3 parking spaces, what we saw from that image, it is red curb all the way through until you get to Ringe, right?
The loss of a dedicated right turn lane to North Ringe,
Correct.
We don't have
which was always
to-
kind of narrow to begin with. I think,
It is used heavily, though. It is used
yeah,
heavily.
yeah,
so yes.
absolutely, because of the stop, the buildup, but yeah, absolutely.
Well, we don't have to eliminate that right turn, so it can be shared. So as far as the design goes, we can make that portion per MUTCD a shared right turn. So bicyclists can share right turn lane.
And this was Ringe, but we'd go to Blossom, we'd go one more block to connect to Barrel Street, Blossom Barrel intersection, and connect to the Barrel Street Class 2 bike lanes.
Okay, carry on.
So next portion is Lilienthal. Again, we're just focusing on the areas that are more constrained. On the side of Lilienthal, there is a park and an existing class 1 multi-use pad. And when we get to the street portion, we had these 2 alternatives, as you see. The alternative on the top is a 2-way cycle track. It's protected bike lane. The alternative on the bottom is class 4 bike lane northbound and a buffered class 2 for southbound. And as you see, first alternative on the top got more votes, and that was our recommendation as well. For first alternative, we're eliminating the second lane. We did the traffic analysis. There's no issue for that. That second lane is just for a small segment of the corridor. And basically, as far as the traffic, there is no impact for the traffic. And we take it from here to the school area. If you go to the next slide.
Before I go on there, just to call your attention, we do have driveways on the easterly side. They are, in, I think, all cases, Lauren may know better, second driveways. So there is front access off of Pruitt, right? Thank you. And so we would need to accommodate those driveways by breaks and the vertical barrier for the class, the cycle track option, but that could be accomplished. Okay, so the next segment.
Yeah, as you see here on this.
Okay.
That's it.
That's the driveway, sorry. I meant to show you that picture. This is the next segment north.
Yeah, this is the next segment. This is next to school. We had 2 alternatives. Alternative on the top is a 2-way multi-use pad, and the alternative on the bottom is a class 3 or shared bike lane. Basically, bicyclists will ride on the street, and the cross section on the left is the existing condition. This is a grass area on the west side of the school. And this is a street view of that. So the bike lane will be between those power poles and the school wall. A portion of this belongs to the school, I believe.
Yeah, that whole section, the grassy area, is school district property, and we've begun conversations with them about their interest in this. So yeah, we recognize that the need to.
So there will be a huge improvement as there is no existing sidewalk today in the school area. So that multi-use pad can be used, but by both bicyclists and pedestrian. And but we'll have traffic measures for lowering the speed of the bicyclist, and we can use different signing and striping methods to make sure that the safety of both pedestrians and kids and bicyclists are met in this location. So the bike lane from here will go north and turn to Ripley. And we had 2 alternatives for this segment. Alternative on the top is continuation of 2-way cycle track or protected bike lane on the south side. So right of the screen is south side of the street. And the alternative on the bottom is a class 2 bike lane with no barrier or protection.
Can we pause for a second? Go back to Lilienthal, please. 2 slides back. One more back. The options 1 and 2, did you guys contemplate any consideration for sidewalk on the east side of Lilienthal? There have been comments from the school district, if they, in this discussions that we're having with them, that they'd like to utilize some of that for pedestrians, not just for bicyclists. Has that been considered?
We don't have a space for separating, bikeway and having a separate sidewalk, but we can design it as a multi-use path. So that's another option that we can do, and this is what we propose. Since it's in the school area, again, we need to consider some traffic measure for slowing bicycles, make sure that, we have, it can be rumble pavement or, signing and striping. But as far as the space, this segment is very tight. We cannot, within the existing right of way, even with, encroaching to schools' right of way, we won't be able to get enough space to have a separate sidewalk and a two-way cycle track.
I would recommend if we bring this before the city council to identify how you would sign it and stripe it as a multi-use, because the way that it's shown, it's exclusive for bicyclists, and we have a very strong bicycle community that would love to see their bike paths be just bike paths, and we have conflicts when they have pedestrians on them. So for a multi-use, I would recommend in graphics and descriptions that show how pedestrians and bicyclists could be sharing that space.
Sure, we can do that. Yeah, we can show more detail for that. So in Ripley, as you see, option 1 was most favorite option for the community. And this is going to eliminate the parking on the south side of the corridor. So with the loss of the parking on the south side, which is adjacent to school, we can have that class 4 way cycle track on the south side. And we need to coordinate that with the school in more details as we are moving forward with the design.
How much parking is lost there?
It's all along from Lilienthal to the end of the corridor, to where Ripley ends.
Roughly how many spaces?
The spaces here are not striped, so we don't have an exact number. I have to do a measurement.
I guess 40 or 50, it's probably about 1,000 feet.
That's everything in front of the Adams
school?
in Washington.
Wow, yeah, okay.
I'm trying to understand the streets. You have Ripley from Lilienthal to Inglewood.
To Inglewood, yeah.
Lilienthal and Inglewood don't touch.
Yeah, Ripley is the connection between two corridors.
So,
It's along Ripley
Like
between the.
Ripley.
I mean, I know
between the-
where you're talking about, but it's written, it says Ripley
From
from Lilienthal to Inglewood. Are we just like that, talking about the space?
Yeah, so it's, along
Okay,
Ripley.
the distance,
but it
along the
starts-
school, basically.
Yeah,
Along the, yeah.
Okay.
So those are the limit of each
Got
block.
it, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Be sure to stop at
Where a
Perkins.
fancy new stop sign is going.
And be sure to stop at Perkins Lane.
Yeah, what stop sign's gonna be there.
Okay.
Yeah, but, okay, so that first one would take out a lot of,
Yes, a lot.
that's, yeah.
And
okay.
create the conflict with drivers going in and out of the school lot for pickup with the cycle track, similar to what you do down by the harbor.
So Adams and Washington School are two of our largest schools in our city. So they're heavily traveled, not only with bikes, but cars as well. So just curious, have you just reached out to their schools or their parent-teacher
We haven't
association?
contacted the school yet. We wanted to look the options first and then contact the schools.
Okay. That would be a good stop and a valuable stop, I think, to get input and buy-in from the community, as well as from their parent-teacher association. They have like meetings every month. I think they're very active and very aware of what's going on in the city. They would appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Carol?
So next segment, again, this is a screenshot of the street view. On the bottom, you can see the school on the right side, and the top one is an aerial view of the project. Next segment is Grant Avenue. So by the way, that the project the corridor will turn north on Inglewood and then turn right, as you see on the key map on the left side on Grant Avenue. So there is an existing class 2 bike lane.
Skipping like a major it's a little gap, but that is a major problem, isn't it?
So, no, it's
north?
actually not. We have another project, a different grant that we're going to develop. There's about a 20-foot swath of
Right,
grassy area on the west side of Inglewood
Okay,
between
so
Grant.
that's going to be like
So
a
our intention is
dedicated-
to use that to make the connection, yeah. But it's not part of his program. So,
Okay, all right.
yep.
Like you're skipping a
Ties in
big
with
part.
other bike paths.
I could feel the red light going on over here.
Right, okay.
Had a flashback to a meeting 5 years ago when we were
Is this the property right along the school district building?
No, there's like a little grassy area, right, like across from the cemetery.
where the North Redondo Beach bike path
Little triangle.
hits Inglewood and
Oh,
stops.
yes.
Across from the cemetery.
Isn't that what this is, right here?
Yes, so basically that segment will connect Ripley to Grant Avenue. In Grant Avenue, 1 block west, the existing class 2 bike lane stops. So we make that connection and we'll continue the bike lane through Grant Avenue as you see here. The best option that is proposed is having a class 4 on site. There's not that many on-street parking that is used in the area. There's a great separation. And we have enough space to have class 2 for great separation and visibility. We better have a protected bike lane because it provides more safety for bicyclists. So that was our recommendation. And as you see, majority of the community were satisfied with this option. Screen shot of the existing condition and at grade separation area. So the existing class 2 will be converted to a protected bike lane. And next segment is Artesia Boulevard. So from this portion, we'll continue to the Galleria Mall area. And the Galleria Mall, through the reconstruction, the project that they have, they're creating a multi-use path. So we'll connect this from end of the Grand to Artesia Boulevard. And Galleria Mall, we had a meeting with them. They're in support of the project. The project will continue as a multi-use path on the east side, adjacent to Galleria Mall, and will connect to Artesia. And we'll continue, as you see here, on the south side of Artesia Boulevard towards Redondo Beach Boulevard. So item option 1 is a class 4 bike lane and a separate sidewalk. Option 2 is a multi-use path, although it's separate. We have plenty of space here. We can have a landscape buffer between the sidewalk and bike lane. And as far as the function, they're very similar. It's just, it gives more greenery because the bike lane is behind the sidewalk. And as you see, we had 84% vote for option 2.
So this area is also part of the Galleria redevelopment, right there, northbound Kingsdale, empties onto Artesia to the receiving lanes on the east leg of Artesia. There are 3. There are only 2 through departure lanes from the other side of that intersection. And so the thought is that 3rd lane, and in the westbound direction, there's also only 2 through lanes as well. So the thought is using that space of the number 3 through lane in eastbound direction between Kingsdale and Redondo Beach Boulevard intersection for bike track. Yeah.
I was just about to ask, am I seeing that for real?
Yeah.
Okay, good luck with that.
Well, I should have maybe spent a little more time on it, but I did say that we are going to have some challenges between the battle for the space between the curbs, right? And if we want to do something like this, then these are the kind of things we're going to have to wrestle with. So.
Yeah, it's bold. Okay.
Just a quick point here. This segment of roadway eastbound has 3 lanes. We did traffic analysis and we can eliminate the 3rd lane. It's just a small segment. It's 1 block on the north side of Galleria that has this 3rd lane. As you see, there is an existing bus stop. It's the far side bus stop on the north west corner of Galleria Mall property. So as part of the project, we are going to recommend to move this to near side, to the other side of Kingsdale intersection. And with that, we can avoid, any conflict, with the traffic on the second lane and the buses, stopping at the bus stop.
Does the Kingsdale intersection with Artesia here take into account the construction that was just finished?
Right, so we have, we didn't change the configuration on Artesia.
You did it on Kingsdale.
On Kingsdale, right. So we have 4 northbound lanes now on Kingsdale, 2 turn left and 2 turn right at Artesia. And then we also have a 30-foot landscape and public use walkway that will be installed by the Galleria in the first stage of their redevelopment. So that's part of our land swap agreement with them for the transit center. So the point is to connect the path at Grant, where Grant and Kingsdale meet, to Artesia and Kingsdale via the multi-use pathway on the Galleria property, which is licensed to the city for 60 years plus 50 more if nobody complains, so.
I've got a question for you. And I was asking Andy for clarification. I'm assuming you've taken traffic volume counts on the eastbound section, that's 3 legs?
Correct.
3 lanes, I should say. And then the LOS analysis at Hawthorne Boulevard. If you collected more recent data to do that analysis, we may have to go back to historic data, because right now, what is the Galleria, which will become the South Bay Social District, is very underutilized, and therefore you're not actually seeing the traffic that can be generated out of there. I think that's something that warrants further assessments on there. As much as the east leg of Artesia does reduce from 3 to 2 within a couple hundred feet of the intersection, it still allows the relief of the 3 lanes going eastbound through the signalized intersection. So I think that segment should be relooked at least for numbers, and make sure that we can get the LOS and the throughput on that.
So we're going to get to an LOS slide here, just
No, I'm just
so you know.
saying which data was used as well.
Well, we stole the data from the Galleria's EIR for pre and post project. Yeah,
Project, actually.
This project, okay.
stole, we borrowed, or we just borrowed it. We gave it back.
Drea?
And by the way, we are not going all the way to Hawthorne, so the project alignment actually changes to Redondo Beach Boulevard. So we'll make that turn right at Redondo Beach Boulevard intersection. So this is a Redondo Beach Boulevard first segment north of Artesia. We had 2 alternatives. As you see, the woods are very close. First one is a 2-way cycle track or multi-use path and east side of the corridor. And option 2 is a class 4 bike lane on each direction. The southbound will be car protected, and northbound we have enough room to create a medium protected bike lane. Again, the voting is very closed. We can work option 1 with the existing right of way. Option 2 has a road diet element. We'll have LOS problem in the intersections with its analysis. So option 2, as far as the traffic volume, is not recommended. Option 1 will keep the existing lane configuration as a 2-lane each direction for the segment.
How do you get bicyclists eastbound Artesia over to eastbound Redondo Beach Boulevard?
So
I know there's 2 left turn automobile lanes, but
we are going to add a crossing east of the intersection of Redondo Beach and Artesia. So that 4-leg intersection, we'll have a new crossing with LOS analysis for the traffic signal, and it doesn't impact, it has minor impact to existing LOS.
thank you.
So this is another segment where we're very challenged for space. A new Starbucks was built there. They added a left turn pocket to turn into that space. There's also a fairly good buffer there that's a landscape buffer and a rain garden, kind of a facility, we thought we could maybe bury that, do some underground detention rather than the rain garden, use some of that space. So just like the rest of this concept, we're really trying to get past the, small incremental, okay, we'll put a Sharrow in instead mindset into, do we really want a bike facility of this caliber? And so that's what we're trying to study here. Doesn't mean we'll get that in the end, but at least that's where we wanted to start the conversation.
Now, in the option one picture on the right, it shows what looks like, pedestrians on an area that's marked for bikes. How do you tell the pedestrians or tell the cyclists, hey, there are people using this that are walking?
This is a standard multi-use path. So
Like the Strand.
I know, but the Strand isn't safe either. The bikes just speed through.
So as far as the cross section, we have to provide signing, striping again for safety of pedestrian. But this is a standard solution for a multi-use path, a mixed-use path, for pedestrian and cyclists. We can see that this in many beach cities, and the frontage and the beach, many cities, they have the same solution. This is a wider section in comparison to a just a two-way cycle track. So two-way cycle track can go down to 8 feet. For this alternative, we provide, more width, 10 to 12, with some buffer on each side. So this has more room. This is much wider. It's wider than, just the standard, even like a 10 feet, traffic lane. So there's plenty of room for a pedestrian. And we usually add signage for pedestrians to walk on the right side and the bicyclists on the left side. If there's any conflict zone, we provide, a stop sign. And if there's any need for other measures for reducing the speed of the bicyclists, we provide those, as part of the design too.
On bike paths like this shared use, are there any accommodations made for disabled people with wheelchairs?
These are ADA, so these paths are actually ADA. That's
It is
correct.
approved
So,
already,
yeah, they
okay.
will have, ramps at the intersections, wherever there is need for an ADA access, or provide that ADA access.
Okay. The signage might say that they're, handicap areas or something like that.
Yeah, we can provide, if we can add later on, this can be like a separate wayfinding with ADA wayfinding type of project too. But the path will be ADA. So for access to any intersection or any area around the project or any connection, that will be ADA as well.
Oh, that's actually Redondo.
So the picture on the bottom is a street view of that right turn pocket that Andy mentioned for Starbucks. We may need to eliminate that as part of this project. So that's the only impact that this will have on this block. And the cross section that you saw is going to be from Artesia Boulevard all the way to Hawthorne. And we'll cross Hawthorne, here going north. And from this portion, based on our conversation with the cities, the proposed will be class 2 bike lane because of on-street parking. This will have minimal impact to existing lane configuration and on-street parking. And this will reduce the cost of the project as well because we'll have minimal impact to the intersection and signals. And this will continue towards north, as you see, most of the community, but more than 50% actually were satisfied with this alternative. And as we continue going towards north.
If I can interrupt you for just 1 second. So we've crossed Hawthorne now, we're into the Lawndale to the, as you look at the picture, to the left and Torrance to the right. Again, Lawndale's actually already painted their class 2 bike lane out there on their side. They just resurfaced the street. In Torrance, again, class 2 is as much as they wanted to do here. From a engineering point of view, there's a good opportunity. There's a long stretch of no parking, red curb that would be an ideal location for a two-way cycle track on the Torrance side of the street, but they were not buying, yeah. So
One more question on that. If we go back to the prior segment, I'm sorry, go ahead, forward to the forward slide. You see how you've got the 2 class 2 facilities here and the travel lanes with the parking. if we go back to the section between Hawthorne and Artesia, was that looked at for class 2 rather than just go back 2 slides? On these concepts here, was that looked at for class 2s in each direction rather than options 1 and 2 as presented?
Yeah.
And is there enough room to implement them?
That's correct, yeah. Again, the project is to provide the highest level of safety. And that's why we look at class 4, wherever class 4 is feasible, we try to, in this area, we can fit in the class 4 within the existing right of way. And community was in support of this option as well, but class 2 is feasible.
Okay, thank you.
So the challenge with class 2 at that is the Redondo Beach Boulevard Artesia crossing concept from a cycle track into the 2 class 2s that are on each side of the street. So that would be a challenge at that
Actually,
point.
this helps to kind of bring, that two-way cycle track all the way to north side of the Gallery Mall and bring it. So it's better for circulation. It will reduce the impact of the signal phasing, timing.
Perfect.
So this is the area that we are getting into the County of LA area and City of Torrance. The project will continue. We have 2 options here. The project will continue northeast through Redondo Beach Boulevard. It's a segment from Prairie to the college. LA Metro has a class 1 project that will connect the north portion and the existing class 1 bike lane in the park to the Domingos Channel. It's a new class 1 bike lane. And our project will terminate there. So option 2 wasn't favored by the community, and option 1 was in favor or supported by the county. So we will go with option 2 for this segment. And this will continue all the way to the college area as a class 2 buffer.
So this is the segment east of Prairie along next to the golf course.
That's not in Redondo Beach.
Not in Redondo Beach. We're not alone in kind of pushing back, this is, as somebody said, it's a pretty bold approach. And there's been some of the county folks who aren't fond of this option 1, but again, that's why we're having the conversation to flesh this kind of stuff out, so.
Which county folks?
I think it was the people that run the golf course, the parks, yeah.
So quick question, especially on Redondo Beach and 190th, you're proposing like some buffer area. I'm going through like a lot of criticism on just doing a buffer. Like, it seems like the bike advocates want some kind of concrete separation, right? Like a raised median or, raised, those parking stall stoppers, as some sort of physical barrier other than a plastic bollard. Is that being considered at all? Because on those really fast streets, maybe on like a residential, it's not such a big deal. It's a slow street, not a big deal. But on a major street like Redondo Beach and 190th, your cars are going flying past you. To their point, it's not safe, even if you have a buffer.
Maybe you'd want something like they have on Manchester. They're big bollards. They're about this much in diameter.
Yeah, those K71 ballers, those are actually useless too. They're just plastic. You can knock it over with
Oh,
your
they are
foot.
plastic? I thought they might be.
Well, I don't know about that situation, but the big ones that LA
They are
uses.
actually, they look really heavy, but they are not. So if
Okay.
a car
It's
hits
also-
them,
it's also
it's more
like
of
a-
like visual, yeah.
I agree. It would be nice if there was a nice separation of some,
Right.
for safety.
But there's also a maintenance issue, right? They get cars, knock them over, and then you go to the maintenance crew and replace them. I've been trying, and Santa Monica just extruded this, like I'm sure you've seen it, it's all over social media, extruded this concrete thing, which I think is also not a great idea, maintenance wise, but at least they're trying something different.
Key rails?
No, they're extruding concrete curb
Oh.
right on top of asphalt, which I think that's a big mistake personally, but.
We have in parking spots, right?
No, it's like think about like a toothpaste where you squeeze out,
right,
like
yeah.
squeezing out concrete, little concrete median.
Yeah.
For like, I don't know.
How high is concrete?
6 inches.
6 inches, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like you have in some parking spaces at the end of the parking space, except it's connected. I mean,
Well, it's 2 feet wide. It's actually a 2 foot
Oh, it's
wide.
wider,
So it's
okay.
actually pretty
Got it,
wide.
got it, yeah.
On Ocean Gate, I think.
The ocean, yeah.
Yeah, so
Ocean Park.
it's an interesting concept that's creating a lot of problems for me in my day job. And so where I having to meet with them, like, why did you do this? It didn't make us all bad, right?
What are the problems?
Well, it's water is going to get underneath. It's going to erode the asphalt. And they could have done the same thing properly, but they just
There's nothing attaching it to the asphalt, just sitting on the
like
asphalt.
rebar. No, the rebar.
Oh, there is
thing.
rebar?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, that's going to rust out after like 2 years, you know? So anyway, there's some technical issues with that, but at least they're trying something different. And I feel like if you got a MAT grant, and the whole purpose of the MAT program is to like really make safe bicycle and pedestrian activity. And I like the fact that we're being bold, to Andy's point. So why not be a little bit bolder and actually do some real protection? And I see that like on Lilienthal by the school, you have like a 2-foot fence buffer. I mean, that's like a really solid buffer on a really slow street. Whereas on 190, they just got these plastic things, right? So that would be my biggest comment is just, hey, look, you know, why not, it costs $1 million. Maybe that's still not enough, but at least on the major streets, we should try to do something a little bit more
Yeah,
substantial,
like
right?
there's nothing shown in these right here. Or I guess there's little poles, right?
Like what you did on like Artesia, right? You have a two-way bike path, you have separate, you have raised curb, you know, that's like really safe. I'd find having my kids ride along that, but I wouldn't have them ride along Redondo Beach in this situation or along 190th. That's, wow, even if they're not doing anything wrong, some driver who's texting is gonna, you know, run off and hit them. So that'd be my one comment.
For sure, yeah, we are in support of the highest basically safety, and the Rolls-Royce version of this design will be creating just a bike lane. You know, we have done projects that is just concrete paved bike lane, landscape median, 3 feet wide landscape median, with bollards on the top, so it provides, you know, more visibility with bike signal.
Yeah.
We have to consider the cost for that too. For that, you know, we usually redo the drainage, we do the analysis, if you have to move the
Yes.
catch basins or use like a rain garden or retention basin, you know, to catch the drainage, you know, we do that as part of the design. But again, those options are valid options too, so we can use any, you know, wheel stop or any other options for more visibility and protection for the.
I saw some, like Long Beach, I think, was using those wheel stops with slotted channels underneath so water would drain through. And that, I actually preferred that over like a extruded concrete buffer. At least that wouldn't prematurely erode asphalt. And if a car were to hit it, it's reinforced within the parking stall versus you know, this extruded concrete is just gonna give it like 2 years of hot and cold cycles, it's going to crack and the car is going to hit it. It's going to start shooting concrete bits all over. I mean, I have lots of comments about that. So, I mean, even just a raised parking stall, like, you know, a 6-inch thing, which shouldn't be super expensive, could be just dialed into the asphalt.
Yep,
And it
they
could
are
be
not-
replaced if a car hit it or, you know, that's better than just plastic, you know.
How about big long, you know, like speed pillow, but, you know, running the horizontally instead of across? You know, just a raised area in the asphalt in that buffer zone.
Well, you want a car to not be like,
Well, yeah, but
Diverge
make it
and-
curved so that treat it like a speed bump.
there are like
they would-
armadillo things, right, that I've seen.
There are
Yeah,
like
there's different-
prefab plastic, it's very similar to those wheel stops and, you know, it's easy installation, you know, they are bolted into the asphalt. They're not expensive, we can do that too. These are all, you know, talking to the city, make sure that, you know, the city is okay for maintenance. Some of those, you know, they come from manufacturers, you know, the wheel stop been around for a long time, so those
Yeah.
are easy to maintain. But the newer options may not be as easy and accessible in future, so we need to consider, you know, the maintenance, you know, for these pipelines as well.
You know, and also if Torrance or county aren't being cooperative with being innovative, I can give them all the advocates their phone number and start getting some phone calls, you know? So I feel like we need to push a little harder on them and, you know, however, maybe this commission can help put some pressure on other cities, it might be worth it. Okay, that's it.
Got some more?
We can just go over the traffic data. As you see, we did the traffic analysis here. We considered the traffic volume from post-construction from Galleria for all these options. We'll go over this very quickly. The only option that we didn't consider is number 5. There was an alignment at the beginning that we were considering to go through Artesia, all the way to Hawthorne and turn north and connect to Redondo Beach because of complexity of this segment and also, not having enough right-of-way in Hawthorne Avenue. We didn't consider that option. As you see, the other alternatives are within the range, have the acceptable range for traffic, level of service, and there's no question on this slide. We can go to the next one.
Yeah, this can be a little mesmerizing to try and read, but, in summary, most of the intersections that they've considered here have a slight increase in delay, a couple of seconds here or there, with some notable exceptions. Line 5, Hawthorne and Artesia Boulevard really grows, which is kind of interesting to me because we're not necessarily going through that intersection. And we also anticipate if the green line ends up over there, there will be additional work done with first, last mile and that kind of thing as they build that station. So that number is significant, but perhaps not permanent when they begin to look at that in the future. The Hawthorne Boulevard and Redondo Beach Boulevard intersection also is impacted fairly significantly. Letter grades are big gaps of time. So if you look at the seconds, you can see the differences there in the AM and PM peaks without the project and with the project. So again, we are talking about adding a whole user class to the roadway that we've always considered as strictly for cars. And that makes an impact to the signals as well as the real estate between the curves. So one could argue that nobody likes sitting at traffic lights, but one could argue that if there's a slower cycle, there's a slower pace of vehicles, traversing the streets. So is it a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure. I think it's probably in the eye of the beholder. So.
Thank you. Well, this concludes our presentation. If there's any questions, we may return some of those questions.
No, I live literally right along here, and I never got any kind of contact for a survey or. This is the first time I'm hearing about this, so I would feel like in your next round you reach out more somehow.
We sent a flyer out and we did a website basically. So the flyer were sent out to, I believe, half a mile from the corridor area.
I don't know. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't receive anything.
I saw it through my council members' Facebook or some social media for Council District 3. She sent it out in one of her emails.
There's a social media. We have a project website as well.
I'm not that old, but I'm old enough not to use it that much, I mean, even a flyer just on my door would have been, oh yeah, well, I'll show up to your table and give a comment, I may have missed it. I didn't see anything, and I literally a block away from Ripley. So,
Yes.
I too would like to see some more additional community outreach. We have 64,000 people in this city and you have 360 something surveys returned. I don't know what that percentage is. I did not major in math, but it's a poor percentage of people. I live within one block, have not received it. I'm extremely involved in this community. It never crossed my path. So I think we could do a better job in reaching out. I think we need to be more, I think it would be helpful to be more mindful about the schools that you're going to be touching. So if you're going to be passing Adams, Washington, Jefferson, I know Barrel Elementary is very close to there, really connecting with those principals or community leaders to make sure that you have an opportunity to go to the school at an event and be ingrained and encourage people to take those surveys. But not just showing up to the school, but really working with the principal to get people to take those surveys because it's going to help the families that affect them. So that would just be my recommendation. I mean, we have a very active community. You just really have to put yourself out there. And thank you for doing the outreach that you did. I think that we could do a better job on this option.
Commissioner Bouchard.
To kind of piggyback off of that, the two-way cycle track in front of the schools, I think that's definitely an option that's going to need to be reconsidered or fine-tuned a little more, just considering the parking and community impacts over there with how frequently those areas are used for, student drop-off, passenger loading, off-hour events and so forth. But, there's going to be like all these back to school events at the schools and the kindergarten summer picnics and things like that, and getting maybe some more feedback from parents of the school age children, considering that we want to kind of shift the paradigm here and get users of all ages using these facilities would be valuable. But one more question I wanted to ask is, in your conceptual designs, I didn't see any parking protected bike lanes. And I think maybe that little stretch of Grant between Inglewood and Kingsdale, where there are some residential area, it looked like it was wide enough that maybe a parking protected bike lane could work there to still preserve some parking for those residential frontages on that street.
Yeah, so what we went over here is just a choke point, so where we have the highest area of constraint. If there's any way that we can fit in any on-street parking or parking protected bike lane, we'll consider that in our actual conceptual plans.
Yeah, I think there was that segment, and then there was another segment that I saw where you were eliminating a two-way left turn lane, but you were still retaining a striped median. It was on one of your later slides.
Grant east of Inglewood.
Is that where it was? Two-way left turn lane, was that from Artesia onto?
Go back one more. No, one more. This one with this. Oh yeah, this was the segment I was talking about.
Yeah, this is Grant Avenue, and this two-way left turn is east of the grade separation. So there are two residential streets on the north side of the corridor. So this left turn will be used for that. We won't be eliminating that left turn pocket on both. So a left turn movement will be eliminated in one of those, which is the one closer to the grade sep, and that's for visibility. So it's like a loop. The area is like a loop residential area. So cars can get in, it's not a long stretch, it's a very short block. So cars get in, one of those streets and turn around.
And then my last comment was also kind of sharing a concern that Ted had about the shared use path, particularly along the elementary school, along Washington Elementary, which was on the east side of Lilienthal. Seeing, the speed and sort of the weight and the mass of some of these e-bikes, and then with the elementary school kids, walking in that would be one shared use path that I would feel a little uncomfortable about.
That's the most constrained area actually of the project, and that's the reason for that is the right of way. The existing cross section of the roadway is not even wide enough. The lanes are like 10 feet wide. We have minimal space, to walk in that area. But I don't know how much more we can work with the school. There is any option to move those walls in the school? I don't know what's behind it all.
A walk zone during school hours.
Well, that was one of the things we actually talked about, where we would use the sidewalk area, the developed area, as a walkway with, walk your bike through here. Recent experience at the pier notwithstanding, that could be something that would be during school hours or drop-off pickup times or weekdays until 5 o'clock or something like that. And then the weekends, it's more available. So that was something we talked about. We do need to spend a lot more time with the schools. To many of you have said that already. I think what we're trying to do is get to a concept that's kind of based on early input, and then start the presentations to get those stakeholders involved, and see what this looks like. I mean, this is one of the former commissioners of this commission. is telling us more bike, less road, less street.
Our buddy Jim, yeah.
I'm not naming names, but,
Must be who you meant.
and then there's the other side where it's like, no, we don't want any bike. And that's kind of the Torrance approach is we want to just really minimal. We'll put them where we have to or where we have space, but we don't want to impact the roadway use or the parking use. And so, and that's valid in some areas too, right? So this is kind of us deciding what we want this to look like. Not us, not just us, but the community deciding what they really want this to look like.
Just a question here. What procedure are we following right now? We're going to have to move to receive and file a report?
Yeah, we're really just looking for input at this point.
This sort of input back and forth. We
Fantastic.
don't need motions to any of that.
I think a receive and file motion would be sufficient.
Sufficient, and then you're taking note of our comments.
One quick follow-up. So now where do we go with, I know your survey period was closed. You gave us this first round of data. Will there now be an opportunity to continue that outreach? I don't recall what your timeline said on one of your early slides.
Outreach phase 2 is closed right now, so what feedback you see here on the screen is actually from the phase 2 of outreach.
It's from what?
Phase 2 of outreach.
Second phase of outreach. So
This was the second phase of outreach.
This was the second phase, yeah,
Wow,
the
okay.
result that you see on the screen is the same.
It sounds like you're looking for us to make a decision, but I personally feel like this has not been shared with the community enough for me to make a decision because I don't know what the community feels.
We're just offering our views. We're not making a decision.
the comments about
Asking.
more outreach is very helpful.
Okay.
We can amend our process in
Got it.
this and
Okay.
say, hey, let's go get some more. Those kinds of things are very, and we've tried to present kind of the worst pinch points along and they're bound to get a lot of reaction from across the spectrum and we anticipate that. And if we need to pause and do some more outreach and all that, we can certainly do that. We're just test driving this idea right now with you guys and seeing what comments you have. And we have their contract is limited to just the conceptual design phase. The city, I think Redondo Beach will probably be the lead agency for the project since we have the most mileage, I guess, in ours. Lawndale's amenable to that. County of LA is amenable to that. So we can circle up with those agencies and talk about how we want to spend the rest of our $6.6 million. And if we want to do a lot more outreach, then maybe that eats into some of that budget and we have to replace that somehow in the future, but that could be something that we do well. So we are early on and we have a lot of options here and we've tried to do enough work to give you a taste of what this might look like and get reactions and we'll be, based on your comments, there are other things that we could do. More outreach. We'll certainly address the schools when we have that opportunity. But yeah, we appreciate all the input, certainly.
Yeah, it's a real quick comment. Yeah, so again, outreach is great. I think, especially when the school year starts, it'd be a perfect opportunity maybe just to get, people talking at their little league games and their soccer games and all that. Because a lot of that discussion happens. I think I wouldn't want us to cheap out, at least on the Redondo sections. And because there's a limited budget. Metro has a ton of money under the MAP program. They've only had one cycle. They're not even really talking about the second cycle, but yet they've been accumulating tax revenue or revenues for the last, several years. I think if we came up with a really robust scope, there'd be an opportunity to request Metro to increase your appropriation. And that, because I have a few MAP projects myself, so I'm planning to go back to them.
Yeah.
And if the green line or the extension goes down for South Smile stuff, will likely count towards a 3% contribution of, the city's requirement to that station over there. So I wouldn't want to cheap out just because we have a limited budget, because it's really not that limited. I'm sure we could appeal to Metro or, use some other function to get more monies.
Initially, the application had an $8 million limit. And we asked for all $8 million. We got 6.6. But to your point, we have asked for Metro for that connecting piece around Inglewood and Ripley and Grant, and they provided money to buy property, money to expand.
Exactly.
So I think you're right. I think and ATP projects are very
it's hot. It's also very sensitive.
They're most eager to give money away in that category, I think. So I think there is opportunity to expand this if we find that is what we need to do to meet the need.
Yeah.
Get a project built.
Great. Just want to make sure we don't cheap out.
No.
That's all I'm gonna say.
So one other way that you can do some reach out, it's also no cost, is you can reach out to the city council members. They have a monthly meeting. Some of them are on Zoom, so it's really easy just to hop on and you can ask them to do a presentation, 10, 15 minutes, and then have the city council members share the survey out to the people who attended, or they can include it into their newsletter. They're all really open to that. And it's going to be probably the North members that are probably going to be most interested in this. I don't know if you are familiar with our districts, but 5, 4, 3, 3, 4, 5, yeah. Yeah, and it seems like you've already connected with Paige, so maybe connecting with Scott Barrett and Zain Obaji would be a good option for you to get some new feedback.
Absolutely.
That'd be good. Other comments, thoughts, questions, any of that sort of thing? I guess we've sort of commented ourselves out. So now I guess we need a motion to receive and file.
That is sufficient. If there are other things you'd like to add to
We
it,
could add to it
recommendations.
that we urge that our comments be taken into account. I guess, I don't know, who would like to make a motion?
What's the
What
motion?
would the motion be?
Receive and file.
Do we make a motion
Even
for
file
further
and
community
don't
outreach?
cheap out, is that what?
Here, I can make it. I'm happy to make a motion. So, do you want to do it?
Sure, I can make a motion to receive and file and to, for staff to conduct additional community engagement to refine to the best option that isn't budget constrained.
I'll second the motion.
Do we have any public comment? I doubt that, since there's no public here. All right then, can we call the roll?
Sure, and just for the record, there's no e-comments or Zoom panelists that would like to speak.
Okay.
So actually, I do have someone that jumped on. Can I allow them to talk?
Yes.
Sure.
Hello. Yeah, there's a bit of a audio delay, so I'm sorry if you. Okay, so can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and speak. My name is Brianna Eakin. I'm a resident of Redondo Beach, as well as a bicycle advocate. I try to use my bike whenever possible to run errands around the city, and I would like to use my bike more if the roads were safer. So I've been excited about this project, especially when I saw that there were renderings for class 4 lanes as well as two-way cycle tracks. I believe there's a survey in the fall, so I took that, and I also took the survey again this spring, which I found out about through, I think, the District 3 council members newsletter. So I want to share that I think I really appreciate that we can have a bolder vision on something like this. I don't want to see it really like taken down to just sharrows. And this kind of project is all about having the mindset of shifting the mode of transportation to make it safer for people of all ages, all abilities. We can reduce carbon emissions. We can make roads safer for all users. So I really want to emphasize the class 4 bike lanes and the two-way cycle tracks wherever possible. This can connect students and families to transit, to commercial districts, and also to El Camino College, which a lot of our high school graduates go to. So one question that I want to ask, I am sad to hear that Torrance is not supportive of the class 4 bike lanes. And I just want to know, what can we do to get them on board? Would it be like organizing Torrance residents to email their city council and staff, writing letters? I appreciate that Redondo is proactive about installing protected bike lanes. And I agree with like Commissioner Minnie's comments that a lot of these are high-speed roads. So to truly provide safe access for bikes, we need to add concrete barriers and make these like protected to the fullest extent possible. So I would like to suggest that the commission like write to Torrance or engage in like the regional advocacy so that we can make this the best possible bike network. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we have a motion on the floor,
I seconded.
right, in a second. So I guess that means that we need the roll call.
Correct. So we have no further Zoom panelists, and there's no additional, let me just double check the e-comments again since, and we don't have any other e-comments as well. So for the motion, go ahead and do the vote now. Commissioner Bajaj?
Yes.
Commissioner Funabashi?
Yes.
Commissioner Nafisi?
Yes.
Commissioner Glass?
Yes.
Vice Chair Min?
Yes.
Chair Simpson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're now to J3, discussion and possible action on July and August Public Works and Sustainability Commission meetings. Do we get a presentation on this, or do we understand what's going?
Yeah, this, I'll just briefly introduce the idea. So in the past, when staff has anticipated that there wouldn't be sufficient business in a meeting, we would issue a notice of cancellation, let you all know that for lack of business, we were going to cancel the meeting. Recently, the city manager has directed staff to not do that anymore based on some public comments that were received at a council meeting. And so he's instead directed us to, if we're in that situation, to bring it forward at the meeting, prior to the meeting where we thought we would be canceled, and share that information with you. And
then
ask,
I
just
assume
let you
that
know.
we then take a vote
Let you know.
whether we should cancel
And
or not.
then it would seem likely that if we had no significant business, the commissioners may decide that they weren't going to attend the next meeting, in which case we would have a lack of a quorum anticipated and cancel the next meeting based on a lack of anticipated quorum. It's a little bit gray area, I have to be honest.
We, as the commission, can't we just make a motion to cancel the meeting? We just flat out make that motion?
I think, Ted, you'll have to help me, but I think you could, yes.
Isn't that what we want to have to happen?
Yeah, I think you can adjourn to the August meeting as an example, instead of adjourning to the July meeting.
Okay, well, we can, but if we make that motion right now, we don't get to do referrals of staff. So what we should do right now is take referrals of staff, and then at the end, take a motion to adjourn to the August meeting.
Correct. This is not the motion for adjournment. This is just the motion to talk about how you're going to adjourn when you get to the time of adjournment.
Okay, so at this point, we don't need to do anything now. We do that motion to adjourn until August is the last thing we do, correct?
Other than have discussion among yourselves, if that's how you want to do it. Yes, that's right.
Are we confirming with staff that we do not have any business for July?
Have no anticipated discussion item. Consent items would be minimal minutes, that kind of thing. Yeah.
For July?
For July. Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So essentially, what would happen if we were to meet in July is that we would come to you, we would have the consent items, if we have minutes as an example, we have any public input, and if there's no presentations, it would go right to the referrals from the commission and then
That's
adjournment.
So we should simply, okay. I mean, it seems to me clear we should adjourn to the August meeting. The only question is when we make that motion. I think we've had the discussion now. We should have referrals to staff. And then the last motion that's made tonight will be that when someone moves, that we adjourn till the August meeting. Right? Yes, go ahead.
Wait, with all due respect, how could it be nothing to discuss? I get like a million emails from just Obaji regarding all these requests.
Yeah, we have a number of stop sign requests that we take a while. Once we get the request going, we're a little bit delayed on just due to budget activity that's kept us from doing that. So we have a red curb item that we could bring, but it's just been introduced. We haven't really thought through it yet, so we're not sure if we could have that ready in time. So as you mentioned, a lot of these are public requests. A lot of them we're either not ready to bring to you yet, or we're in the process and we won't have the results of the surveys, for instance, in time for the July meeting. So that's kind of how we got to this spot.
So during the last few meetings, there were a number of requests that we had requested from you. I was going through the minutes. We haven't been provided an update on those. So do those just become on hold if we decide to skip the next meeting? There's, it seems like there's.
Thought we'd addressed most of those.
I know, well, I mean, we can get into it when we get to referrals, but I know that there was a number of things on there, particularly that I requested, that haven't been addressed. So I guess wouldn't be supportive of skipping a meeting, because I feel like there's still work to do.
Well, I mean, the referrals to staff, I mean, those don't usually, at this point, require motions or action. They're often. Anyway,
well,
okay, so.
Actually, I respectfully disagree, because some of the requests were to come back to the commission to vote on them, right? So one was a study on the consultant. Another one was, I think, a member of the community came here. So there are things that are there, but you're saying you're not ready to bring them to the
That's what it sounds
commission.
like.
Well, the one item, the citywide traffic mitigation study that was proposed, we reported on in the quarterly reports. And that, because the council asked us to put together a BRR, we came up with a price tag of about $1 million on that. Council did not fund it for the budget. And so we consider the matter dead at this point, or at least sleeping until there's funds to do that kind of a study.
Okay, so the study went straight to council, didn't come back to us, even though we requested it. Is that correct?
Yeah, let me help Andy there for just a second too. There's a couple of things here. One, the commission can't ask staff to do work that would be as significant as a citywide study.
Okay.
You can ask us to look at an intersection, look at some red curb, something of that magnitude, absolutely. Your request was actually brought up at the strategic plan, if you recall. And it's during well, you're the one that presented it, right? And the city council at the end of the strategic plan actually asked for that information to be brought as part of the budget. And that's what Andy is referring to as the budget response report. So essentially we went through that process. We provided the budget response report. The estimate, it's really a very high level estimate, was over $1 million. And what the city council basically, by not acting on that and requesting us to bring that forward or adding that into the budget motion, meant that there's nothing further to do with that. And what we're reporting back to the commission is the city council was provided that information. It was brought up at the strategic plan. They asked for a budget response report. So it was given to them to opine and to provide any potential funding. And they basically did not act on that and provide any funding for it. So there is nothing for us to bring forward any longer.
So the question I guess I have for you, when we make requests that you cannot meet, why don't you tell us that you can't, why don't you just say, I cannot do that, so that we're not expecting it? I'm just trying to manage expectations on both sides.
Well, managing the expectation before we brought it up, as a matter of fact, and in this particular case, it was brought up at the strategic plan, and the council did ask for a budget response report. So it was there.
I mean, when I brought it up at this meeting.
What Andy is saying is that with the material that we've provided on the quarterly report, we're basically coming back to the commission and saying, you requested this from us at such a meeting. These are the steps that were taken, and at this particular point, there's nothing further to report on.
That's in the quarterly report that we just got. So, right, I mean.
It was received and filed tonight. Right.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, it was received in file, so that would have been.
We had to address it as we do most of the projects that you recommend forward. We try and keep you apprised of when they go to council or what we're waiting on or that kind of thing, or what the council as a way to communicate follow-up on some of these items. So we included that one in the quarterly report. I couldn't think of anything else to do with that, given the fact that there's no funding to up such a big project.
So are we now at the point where we should do referrals to staff, I think, right?
We're ready.
All right, any referrals to staff?
I guess I could.
You can start that way.
So at Perkins and Huntington, could I refer you to, at an appropriate time to look into to a reconfiguration of that intersection. Perkins
Perkins
and
and
the one that we
Lillian, and,
Band-Aid
Ripley.
stop sign.
And just for clarity, would that be in doing that study or analysis prior to stop sign installation, or at least going to council with the stop sign installation, or in
It's
addition to?
independent. It's independent.
I think it's independent because we voted
All right.
on a motion to accept the recommendations, right? So I think it would just be an independent analysis.
Sure.
Understanding that, it would be more expensive than just a stop sign. So, with this project, there could be an opportunity to investigate that, right? Just so that, staff are not ignoring it.
And I think a lot of you said, you have similar situations all up and down Ripley because of the direction of the street. That is something that we've looked at Lilienthal, and it is something we'd like to implement at some stage when the capital funding comes around. So yes, we can do that conceptually.
Other referrals to staff. Commissioner Afisi, yes, please.
Yes, so 3 meetings ago, March, April, May, I've requested an update on the Lilienthal slide. I was just wondering if you guys have an update.
I passed that to Mike. He did not call you.
He's not called me,
Okay.
brought it up the last.
He has sent a couple of emails. That slide has been replaced. It took some time for that slide to come in, but it was replaced actually in May.
In May, okay. All right. And then the last meeting, we asked, I'm not quite sure who requested it, for a presentation from RBPD. Did that get scheduled?
It's not a presentation. What we would do is we will bring RBPD when we have some traffic issues that will deal with enforcement, and we'll ask the traffic sergeant or the traffic lieutenant to provide someone to be here. Yes.
Okay, so they'll be coming in the future? Is that-
We ask, that's all we can do. It's a
Okay.
different department. We can ask the department to provide that officer, but rather than making it what was done before, which was to have that officer present at every Public Works Commission meeting, the traffic division does not have the around-the-clock sort of operation. They are more in the normal daytime operation, and therefore they'd have to assign an officer to come in during their overtime. And in doing so, then we would be asking the traffic division lieutenant to actually send someone when we have a matter that may impact traffic circulation, enforcement, and things of that nature.
Okay. Back in February, we had a number of residents come talk about the parking situation on Maria. And they were talking about, the school had written a letter about the Maria. And at the end of the meeting, I made the request for you guys to paint the curb red, because the residents coming out of the alley behind Maria couldn't see. I was just wondering if that ever got done. I was in the February meeting.
I don't recall that
I
one
don't recall
either.
it, but because of the construction that's been going on, we probably wouldn't have done anything during the construction anyways.
So this is Maria at the extension
Maria and
of,
Beryl. I'm sorry, no.
Maria.
It's Maria, then the alley.
the extension of
Yeah, because people park
Carnelian.
on
the
Beryl,
extension of
and the
Carnelian.
alley people can't get out.
You're talking about Carnelian's extension where it narrows down, or?
No. So you think Beryl and Maria?
Yeah,
It's
Where the
just the
signal
alley
is.
right behind the first house.
alley that parallels which street? Parallels Maria?
Parallels like Paulina.
Okay. So it would be then to the east of Maria.
That is right.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm done, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Funabashi.
No request for me tonight.
Commissioner Rajaj.
Yeah, I have a request, I guess, or a question. Is Public Works in charge of like the sprinkler system or water, for irrigation for like Moonstone Park, or like the grass that's along that strip of roadway, let's call it the north side of Portofino Way, west of Harbor? Like across, like right by Port Royal Marina? Because last time I was out there, it seemed like all the grass is dead on that green strip opposite of the Seaside Lagoon that runs, like the walkway that runs from like where the Port Royal, like Yacht Club is down towards the Portofino Hotel, that
On the north side of the street?
on the north side
That's
of
Portofino Drive,
Way
at that, or way,
Drive,
yeah.
west of Harbor. And Moonstone Park as well. Looked like the grass was all dead there. So I don't know if maybe the sprinklers were turned off during the rainy season or, they were adjusted. But is that something that Public Works handles?
I know Moonstone is one of our parks.
Yeah.
I don't know. Typically, the parkway landscaping is the responsibility of the adjacent property owner.
Okay.
Per the state highway code. And so if the adjacent property owner there is the marina, they may not realize that that's theirs to do.
Okay.
But we could certainly take a look and reach out to them if.
Yeah, I mean, if it looked.
I'm trying to imagine that space in my head. I'm not
Yeah.
quite getting it, so.
Like just opposite the entrance to Seaside Lagoon, that long grass strip.
Yep.
Yeah, we will have to check on that because there are, as Andy mentioned, there's, depending on the leasehold and the definition of that leasehold, it may be whoever the leasehold is, that's their
Yeah.
responsibility. In general, though, you're right, it is Public Works
Maybe
that
Craig can handle
oversees
it.
any public right of way and.
It's between the two that sees, yeah.
Other questions and referrals?
For the underlying
Yes.
property owner.
Yes, Commissioner Glass.
By the boats.
I have one, and along Vale, the east side of Vale, between Manhattan Beach Boulevard and White Circle, there's a strip of land, which I understand belongs to the city. But I also have noticed that owners on the next street over seem to have fenced in that land. Does it belong to the city or not? And shouldn't it be, if so, should the city not retake it and make it into something like a neighborhood park?
That's actually something that was looked upon. We do believe that that's city public right of way. And we will be talking to the council member, the new council member in District 5. We had conversations with the former council member in District 5. And we'll be talking to the city attorney about that before we make a determination. We have started looking at potential concepts of utilizing that space, but we will be talking to our attorney first to ensure that our assessment is correct in moving that forward.
Okay, thanks.
This isn't exactly a referral to staff, and maybe a referral to my fellow commissioners. It's my understanding that we now have city email available for all commissioners, right?
We do. The city clerk has reached out to all of the commissioners throughout the city. They would like you to get a city email address, so that helps with public records requests. And it wouldn't, your personal email then would not be subject to any public records request if you were not doing, but if you do continue to do city business, that would be subject to the public records request, so.
On your private email, which, so you want to get the city email if you can, and it's relatively easy to do. I know this because I just got
On our
one.
business cards, isn't it?
Well, yeah, the business card doesn't have, my business card is, I don't know what it says, but it's not john.simpson@redondo.org, which is what my city email address is. I think it says publicworks@redondo.org, so people could send to the Public Works Department, and then we would be forwarded the message. I think that's the old system, but now we can all get our own individual city email addresses. So I urge us all to go ahead and do that.
Chair Simpson, I'll check with our new IT director and the city clerk's office. If you have not, I believe you should be owed business cards, and those new business cards should identify your city email. That way, if you're communicating with the public or you're communicating with us, it does make that, as Lauren said, a searchable email from the city's IT system.
Right.
But the clerk has initiated, as I understand it, with all the commissioners, so it would be a response to that email.
It's a form from like 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, once you acknowledge
Lou
that, then
Garcia
you
was
get the address.
the city manager.
Now, the amazing thing to me was that I'd gotten some emails from some people in Public Works Department to that address before I even knew I had it. So for instance, Ted, I got one from you, which a year ago.
Okay?
So I guess maybe the IT department set these things up and didn't bother to tell anybody that they'd done it or something.
But you received that email?
We're supposed to sign the form
I
acknowledging
received an
the policy.
email
Yeah.
from you talking about something, something a year ago. That was, it showed up in the email box as being a year old.
And you're telling me about it now? I
Well, I
totally
just
forgot.
discovered it. It's crazy. Anyway, I think we probably would like to get a motion to,
Adjourn until August. Who would care to make that motion? Did I see Commissioner Glass? Did you make that?
Yeah, I will make the motion that we adjourn to the next regular meeting on August 28th, I believe it is.
Second?
That's right, Dave?
Yep. Yes, that is the 28th.
All those in favor of that motion?
Did you get a second? Yeah.
Yeah, second from Commissioner Funabashi. So we need a roll call vote?
Sure, let's do that. Commissioner Bajaj.
Aye.
Commissioner Funbashi.
Aye.
Commissioner Nafisi.
No.
Commissioner Glass.
Yes.
Commissioner, Vice Chairman.
Aye.
Chair Simpson.
Aye.
Okay.
Stand adjourned.